Good afternoon, everyone. It's Friday. It's Chat with Mac. It's been a very busy week, but we're happy to have you here. And for all of you that are joining us for the first time, welcome to Chat with Mac. Nadeem, how's it going, sir?
It's going pretty good. I see you had to do a double take there. You paused for a minute when you said good afternoon, and you had to kind of look.
I thought it sounded like my headset was going in and out, but yeah, that's my fault.
I thought maybe you were wondering if it's afternoon or morning.
There are days where it feels like that, to be totally honest with you.
Right?
How's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good. Yeah, man, we had a bunch of projects that we kind of just getting wrapped up, and it's been a busy week, but it's always good. It's always fun. Um, it was an interesting week for me. I just got it's one of those weeks where you kind of make as a business, you don't take little steps, you make like big strides. And this week we just made some big strides. So
Yeah,
I'm happy about that.
yeah, absolutely.
So what are we going to talk about today?
So interesting thing went on as far as um, Apple is concerned. And so there's this. I remember when everyone was talking about Apple and Apple doesn't get malware and all this other stuff. But I remember that was like one of the biggest things they talked about. Well, apparently, the Macs were hit with some pretty high levels of malware, and the CEO, well, no, actually, the head of engineering isn't too happy about that. So, tell us a little bit about that, Nadeem.
So I think what Federici said was kind of misconstrued. He did not say that it was hit with too much malware comparatively. All he said was that it is not at an acceptable level.
That's correct. Yep.
So what that means is that even if it's, let's say, and I'm just throwing out numbers, let's say 10% of all the PCs in the world are infected, and let's say 5% of Macs all around the world are infected. He's just saying that even that 5% is not acceptable. He's not saying that comparatively we have too much malware compared to other OSs or systems out there. He's just saying whatever level we are at, it's not acceptable, right? Now, what he's comparing it to, remember, this was a fight over the iOS restrictions. So what he's comparing macOS to is iOS. So comparatively, macOS is many times higher infection rate compared to iOS, because in macOS you can, people can install any kind of application they want. There's not much restriction. On the other hand, on iOS, unless you jailbreak a device on iOS, you cannot install stuff unless you go through the App Store. And that's why the infection rate is very low on iOS, right? And that's what he meant. And I think a lot of the reporters out there kind of jumped on that. Oh, it's it's all BS. It's just a way to get some publicity and get their news story up and have people read it. That's not at all what he said. He just said it's unacceptable, which even at 0.5%, he can say it's unacceptable because we want to approach that 0% infection rate. And that's a great thing to say. I don't think it's wrong or bad in any way. Now, having said that, my inner geek is going to come out a little bit.
You gotta come out.
So here's the thing. Microsoft has made huge strides, talking about strides. Microsoft has made huge strides after it released Windows 10, or actually a little before it released Windows 10. When Windows 8 first came out, that's when things started to change. So you see that you've heard of that annoying thing called UAC. There was no concept of UAC before Windows 8, and the whole purpose of UAC is to kind of replicate the model that Linux and macOS use as far as user privilege is concerned. So, in other words, a user is not allowed to install applications unless another uh, confirmation is approved. So even if you're an admin user, when you try to install something, it will ask you, "Hey, do you really want to do this?" And what that does is, if some application tries to install something on your behalf, it's going to prompt and ask you, "Hey, do you really want to do this?" And now the user can say yes or no. And that's where that Windows, when UAC first came out, people were annoyed with it because every time they would go to install something, it would ask them, "Hey, do you really want to do this? Yes or no?" But that's a good thing. Now, even better thing, which a lot of Linux people and Linux admins will deploy and set their user machines up this way, is to where a user always runs as a normal standard user, not as an admin level user, and then have an alternate account, which is the admin level account. That's the best practice. That's basically how I run my machines. Like my day-to-day machine, this machine that we are recording this on and we're using this on, is logged in as my regular standard user. It's not a power user, it's not an administrator, it's just a regular user, right? And I can't install anything as this user. I have to provide better credentials, higher privilege credentials to install any applications on it. That's just a good practice. So now if I go to some website that tries to install something, or if I have an application that's rogue that tries to install something, the system's going to ask me, "Hey, you're wanting to install this, but what are the admin credentials?" And I can type those in if I want the application to install that. So that gives you the level of protection. So two things are happening here. Number one, Windows has come a long way from where it was. So the infection rate on Windows has gone down comparatively. Yeah. Now, and also the other thing that's happening is the number of Macs out there has increased. So Mac OS is becoming a better target for the bad guys because comparatively, it's still a drop in the bucket, right? Like, if you look at some of the numbers, and I'm looking over here at, Windows is 31.73%, as total market share. iOS or Mac OS is 7.08%. So just comparatively, 31% machines out there are Windows, 7% machines out there are Mac. The others are handhelds, iOS devices. But anyway, so total market share, what would a bad guy want to attack? Would they develop something to attack the 7% or the 31%? Yeah, of course they're going to design something to attack the 31%. That's just a bigger attack surface, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's what Windows is still grappling with. Now, of course, Mac is growing by leaps and bounds. Mac OS market share is growing very fast and in huge amounts. However, the nature of the OS, the way Mac OS is built, which, by the way, Mac OS is based on BSD, which is the way it's developed is just inherently much more secure. So secure that Microsoft started mimicking what those guys are doing. It was that good of a design. It was that good of a philosophy that Microsoft started to replicate that in Windows 8, and now in Windows 10, they just refined it. So the thing is, what Federighi said was not that Macs are just getting infected left and right. All he said was that it's at an unacceptable level, and what that is a good thing for a company to say, that even a little bit, even we don't care about the rest of the world. Within our ecosystem, even if 0.1% is infected, that is unacceptable. We want to approach that 0% infection rate. That's a great thing to say. And it's nothing. Now, at the end of the day, again, let me just say this. He was not comparing Mac OS with Windows OS. The context of saying this came about because of the battle with Fortnite, which was that they were talking about iOS. They were saying, hey, Apple needs to open up iOS to let third-party software developers install apps. Apple is saying, no, we're not going to allow that because iOS, we like it where it's at. It has such a low infection rate. Mac OS is unacceptable to us. So So now, if you read behind the lines, what I'm reading behind the lines is Federici slash Apple would love to take Mac OS to the level where iOS is, where you can only install
Mm.
apps through the App Store because it makes the machine so much more secure. That's well, that's a bad thing for us IT people because we won't get enough, as much business because people won't inspect the machines. But I'm just saying that's a good thing. That's a good thing to do because nobody wants to spend time cleaning up machines. Even we as IT people, even though, you would think that we make money doing this, it's not something that we enjoy. We don't like, we want to spend time doing something that's new, that's creative, that is like cutting edge. We don't want to just sit around cleaning up machines of malware and stuff like that. And in this day and age, I mean, where hardware is a commodity, it's like, just format it, start from scratch. I mean, in this cloud-based world, all the data and the settings should be in the cloud anyway. So just format it, start from scratch. Don't waste your time trying to clean up. Just blow it up, start from scratch. Boom,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
So I think what Federici said was it was just misconstrued and taken out of context. He was just saying that he would love to get Mac OS to where iOS is at such a low infection rate, and the infection rate on Mac OS is unacceptable. He did not say it's blowing up comparatively from year over year. He did not say that. He did not say it's much more compared to Windows or much more compared to Linux or much more compared to any other thing. All he was saying was it's not as good as iOS, and that's a fact. It's not just saying to be saying things. That's a fact. The reason it's a fact is because iOS, you cannot install stuff unless you install it from the App Store, which has to be approved by Apple. And if that's not, I mean, that's a tough thing to do. It's not easy. You can't just apply and get approved. There's a lot of things you have to comply with. And then on Mac OS, you can just get an application and install it. Now, of course, the application that you're installing has to be signed by the developer. They have to have it signed with a certificate. However, if it's not signed with a certificate, the end user can still override it and install the apps, which I've done a lot of times. A lot of apps that I use, that I have to use, they're not signed by the developers, which is that's just bad developers. That's just a bad practice. They should get the certificate, sign their apps with that certificate so that it is authenticated. So the Mac OS knows, hey, this is a signed app, so it's authenticated. So I'm going to go ahead and not complain. I'm just going to install it. However, sometimes we have to go and do a little bit of work on the back end to get that to install. And it's nothing like jailbreaking or anything. It's just telling Mac OS, hey, go ahead and install this app anyway, even though there's not a certificate on there. So that's the thing. It was, and I saw that news. It was all over. Everybody was talking about it, and it was like people were trying to make it to mean like Federici was saying that year over year Mac OS infections have gone through the roof and blah blah blah. It's nothing like that. He was just comparing it with iOS, and that's a fact. Comparatively, Mac OS versus iOS is a drop in the bucket compared to the infection rate of Mac OS. And the only reason why every now and then we hear about something in iOS is because some shady developer out there tricked Apple to approve an app that was not following their policy, where
Wow.
maybe it was collecting some information that it's not supposed to, or not using the proper method to for garbage collection and keeping the personally identifiable information safe, or whatever it was doing. Now, this battle with Fortnite, basically it's Fortnite saying, hey, Apple, allow us to install apps on your devices without having to go through the App Store. And Apple is saying, hey, our devices, our rules, you're not going to install apps on our devices unless we approve it. And we're not going to approve it unless you go by these rules. And these rules are pretty much standardized across, for most vendors. Of course, some vendors will, when their app doesn't get approved, they start, complaining and moaning about, hey, Apple, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, it's good for the consumer. Joe Blow down the street who doesn't know anything about, jailbreaking or anything like that, he is relying on Apple to make sure that his device stays secure, right? It's a good thing. But it has nothing to do with Windows. It has nothing to do with anything else. And it was just construed, and people just took it the wrong way. And I don't know why. I mean, English is not even my native language, and I understood very well what Federighi said. And I don't know why a lot of these, PhD journalists couldn't understand what he was saying. They just took it the wrong way. I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, I think, and just from the article itself, I think my biggest thing, is, thank goodness that Federighi's trying to get ahead of it, especially since malware has become such a huge problem. And like you, reading the article, yeah, he really didn't say anything that should have blown up. But, kudos to him to saying, okay, let's test our protocols and make sure, that it's safe. Because, man, if you got to have your head in the sand if you haven't heard of, what happened with Colonial Pipeline and all this other stuff. And, it looks like from what I've been reading, there's been a lot of rising attacks against Mac computers. So, but, Apple as usual is trying to just push ahead and make sure they get ahead of it. Can't say the same for some other systems that are continually getting hit, but, kudos to Apple.
Yeah. And it's a double-edged sword, right? Mm-hmm. Apple cannot just restrict application install on macOS, because then they start losing a lot of users, and a lot of power users, especially in the graphic design and media editing industries. They use Apple devices, so they're gonna scare away these users who have to have these applications installed on their devices. But then on the other side, if you don't restrict it and you let anybody install anything they want, a lot of times people end up installing junk they really don't need, or they really don't understand, and then at the end of the day start screaming, my machine is running slow, or I'm seeing ads on my machine because some Joe Blow company created an app that just is a crappy app. It either has vulnerabilities or intentionally. We've seen applications intentionally show you ads or redirect you. Like if you're trying to go to a certain website, they will redirect you to a different website. And a lot of these apps actually come pre-installed on PCs from the factory. It's like, and that's why, I always insist on people who want to buy computers or this is, we deal with businesses. So businesses who want to buy computers, I always tell them and insist that don't just go down to, whatever computer store and buy a computer with Windows 10 Home and all these other borderline malware pre-installed. It's like, you don't even have to connect the machine to the internet to get infected. It comes pre-infected. It's like, guys, don't get these machines and stick it on your network. It's a problem we have, and people don't understand. People think that, oh, I'm just saying this because I want to sell them a more expensive machine, and that's not what I want to do. I want to sell you a machine that comes with a 3-year warranty. I want to sell you a machine that is going to last you a while. Yeah. And I want to sell you a machine that is not going to come pre-installed with malware from factory. Think about. Was there a case about Lenovo that they had an application that was malware? They found out it was malware sending information to China. There was a printer. I forget the brand name. There was a printer that was actually communicating to mothership in China. What a printer? Why would a printer need to be talking to China unless it wants to send the blueprints of the last printout it did to China? But the thing is, there's a reason why we insist on certain things. We insist on enterprise grade machines not because they're expensive, not because they have a 3-year warranty, a bigger warranty, not because they have a lot of times they have on-site warranty, but because they don't come pre-installed with malware that then we have to spend hours cleaning it up, and even then we cannot be sure that the machine is
Everything
clean.
is clean. Yeah. Yeah.
That's just the nature of the beast. And same thing goes with routers, switches. I mean, I'm sure by now everybody's heard of the firmware that was infected on Cisco switches. Cisco. I mean,
right.
So the thing is that the recommendations that we make, they are based on some things that we see that a lot of people who are actually buying, the consumers, they don't get to see the things. It's almost like a cop telling their kids not to leave the house because of the bad things they see out on the street. but we do actually see this stuff, and a lot of this, it's what we take as what we think is logical and common sense. It's really not that common. Unless you deal with this stuff on a daily basis, a lot of times people don't even think about things like this. So anyway, with that, I think we'll call it a day. What do you got planned for the weekend, Mac?
Really nothing. Nothing at all. I'm just
Is it gonna rain all weekend?
I think it is. That's the thing. I hate. I'm not a rain guy at all. I think it is gonna rain all weekend. So I might. I was thinking about watching. I've been missing out on Marvel. Oh my God, the Winter Soldier and Falcon. I said I was gonna watch that. I want to watch Star Wars. Which one?
Have you heard or read the book The Phoenix Project?
No.
Okay. It's and I'll see if I can send you a copy, but it's a book about IT and DevOps and stuff like that, but it's a good book around business, just around business and how to run and operations and things like that. So for a lot of people out there, who are business owners and operate businesses, decision makers, it's a good book. It's called The Phoenix Project, and if you Google it, you'll find it. It's I think it's pretty well known. But I'll send you a copy of it, Mac.
Yeah.
I have the audiobook, so I just listen to it, while I'm driving and stuff. But yeah, it's a good book. It really, helps out with streamlining operations, and it doesn't matter if it's IT or any industrial operation. The main theme is, that IT should be run like an industrial operation, not something different.
Right.
Which is really eye-opening. But anyway, with that, we'll call it a day, and have a good one, Mac. Be safe out there, and everybody else, be safe, and we'll see you next week.
Safe, guys.